The other story is Alligator Alcatraz. That's right. We'll look at this. Is the 5. Trump attends the opening of Alligator Auschwitz and the tent in the Everglades that's already leaking water across electrical cables. Great for staff and the safety of the people there, wouldn't you say?
All right, so we're going to move on with our topics that we had for today. Other really important news. President Trump wasn't holding back during his tour of Alligator Alcatraz. The reptile-infested ICE detention center deep in the Florida Everglades is officially opens tomorrow, and it's got...
It's officially opens tomorrow?
Room for 3,000 of the worst of the worst.
So we're putting the worst of the worst in tents. In a tent. Worst of the worst. Is that it? You're going to put them in tents.
They say violent criminal migrants. We're taking child predators. We're talking child predators, rapists, and fentanyl traffickers.
Right, and you're going to put them in tents where they will, I don't know, maybe they could sharpen a toothbrush and cut their way out of it.
They'll be up
One of the things about Alcatraz, say what you will, but the walls were fucking concrete.
Against the alligators and pythons. Here's what the president had to say.
It's known as Alligator Alcatraz, which is very appropriate because I looked outside and that's not a place I want to go hiking anytime soon. This facility will house some of the most menacing migrants, some of the most vicious people on the planet.
Right, but it's obviously visible from regular satellite imagery, so I don't know, murderers who have friends on the outside could probably find their way to getting a boat or something and then pick them up.
We're surrounded by miles of treacherous swampland and the...
Right, so you just get one of those big fucking fan boats and some dude can coyote everybody out of there because you've got, like, you know, top-level murderers and rapists in tents.
The only way out is really deportation. We took the FEMA money that Joe Biden allocated to pay for the free luxury hotel rooms, where he's paying hundreds of millions of dollars in New York City, and we used it to build this project.
But right on schedule, the liberal media and Democrats just took the bait on Alligator Alcatraz.
Alligators rarely attack people. Pythons rarely attack people. That is extremely performative.
They definitely want to scare people.
It's wasteful and an incredible risk to our ecological resources.
These are our friends and our neighbors. These are people who are picking our crops.
Ron DeSantis is still governor of Florida. He took the Comfy Couch hosts on a tour of the concentration camp that he's building in Florida in order to round up brown people, and throw them in a camp because he doesn't want them in Florida.
Greg, Joy Reid is so full of it. The couch is not comfy.
No, not at all. It's very stiff. Look.
I think that was an attempt by both of these dipshits to make a joke. I'm not certain, but I think that was an attempt.
The Dems fall for it. They call it cruel and inhumane. So.
No, I didn't, by the way. I would like to say, I'm as Alec Baldwin would say, a dyed-in-the-wool, carry-me-out-in-a-box Democrat, and the cruelty isn't the problem. My concern is that if they're really as bad as you say they are, why are you keeping them in a tent? And do you think these motherfuckers will be afraid to cross swampland? What are the toilets? They have air conditioning, there are toilets. That's not a problem there. It isn't. Like, that part of it's taken care of. They're not violating the Geneva Convention there. This is all for show.
How is it cruel and inhumane? Because it's remote, it's surrounded by alligators. There are like 100+ airports in Florida that meet that criteria.
See how he wrote that down as a joke? Oh, what's going on in the background? Hold on one second. Cam. How's your game going? Is it good? Are you having fun? Because we can hear you and it sounds fun. Okay. Psst. Love you. Good old game of Gorilla Tag still going strong. Yeah. Greg Gutfeld is the Alligator Alcatraz of comedy.
Everything in Florida is surrounded by alligators. How many pictures have you seen on this show of golf courses where an alligator comes up on the fairway and everybody's going, oh, look at the elevator?
Yeah, but you don't have to stay. You're not legally forced to stay on that golf course. Don't get me wrong. Mar-a-Lago is a shithole, but
Angle the Dems are going to exploit because they have nothing else is compassion, right? But it no longer works because they showed an
look at this. Benny Johnson shot this footage.
overwhelming lack of compassion for the victims of sex trafficking among.
No, because you're asking us to take for granted that these people you're sending there are actually guilty of these things when you won't go through due process and it's all hidden. That's the concern, right? None of us worry about criminals and people who are violent perpetrators, and we do care about victims, but we don't want to make new victims just because you don't like brown people. How about that?
Illegals, the victims of rape and murder of illegals.
Sorry, like, does it matter that we care about the victims of rape and murder by citizens like Epstein and his victims and Trump's victims?
So you can't lecture us on empathy or.
Sure we can. Yeah, because you have to actually prove the people we're talking about are guilty of what you say they are.
Passion when all of yours are for the perpetrator.
Nope.
Great thing about Trump and what the left misses, he knows how to sell something.
Right. Even if it's not real, like Trump Steaks or Trump University or The Art of the Deal, even if it's complete bullshit, including a camp in the middle of the Everglades that's a bunch of fucking tents, very cheaply made, that are not permanent structures, that will hold 3,000 people, but we don't know who those people are, if indeed they're even illegals, even if they're undocumented. Prove it. That's the issue. If you're going to prove that they're these awful people, and again, if there's 2.5 million of these, or I guess 25 million of these fuckers in there, and 10% of them, 2.5 million of them, are violent predators and terrible, violent people who they'll eat your face. If that's how many of them there are, what the fuck does 3,000 beds in tents do for that number? It won't make a dent.
Knows that you incentivize with words. He causes his message to do the heavy lifting, right? So if you're an illegal with an opportunity to leave, you could leave now or take your chances and end up in a place surrounded by alligators.
What if you're a mother of two and you work in an office building in the janitorial services? Is that an option for you? Run or be put in a fucking alligator-surrounded camp in the middle of the Everglades? And why would that be? Why would they be the priority? And by the way, anybody who would self-deport is obviously not one of the criminals you're talking about. Why, if you're already a murderer and a rapist and all this stuff, you think you're going to worry about your citizenship status?
It might not even exist. It doesn't matter. He creates this in your head, which is why it's not surprising. 1 million people have already self-deported because there were 4.
Right. Allegedly. And by the way, they didn't self-deport. They gave up on their visa extensions and shit like that. Where were those fucking plane tickets?
4 words that served as the message. Biden's out, Trump's in. We better leave. So this is
7.
This is great. I love Alligator Alcatraz. It sounds like it came from the makers of Sharknado, but it's all
right, because that has an animal in the title as well.
Part of the message of self-deportation, and he is a master at it. It's hilarious.
It's hilarious. Unlike me.
Messaging, it's almost like Trump is good cop and bad cop, because they're saying he's leaning into the alligator thing. He's talking about, you step here, you step that way, you're still going to die if you run from them. But then they're also saying, hey, listen, it's air conditioned. You've got all the resources. This isn't hell on earth. It's a perfectly suitable prison. And
it's a perfectly suitable prison.
And I guess in that way, he kind of neuters their attacks, but also leans into the messaging he wants.
Right. Well, and also because it's catchy, right? Alligator Alcatraz, and
Yeah.
you can picture it. And I think it's better than trying to reopen the old Alcatraz. This makes a lot more sense. Plus, one of the guys.
Well, because Alcatraz, even in its heyday, you had to actually be found guilty in a court of law of something to be put in the place. So that complicates things as well. Whereas this, you could just fucking wear a mask and round people up, throw them in a goddamn van. Next thing they know, they're in the middle of the Everglades.
The Attorney General from Florida, he was on Newsroom this morning, and I said, well, how long do you think a stay is going to be at Alligator Alcatraz? And it's not years. He said days, possibly weeks, in some cases months if they have a bunch of due process hearings. So there's that. Also, the deterrence factor is also important. So it is illegal to cross into the country. And
this is where the zero tolerance thing from Stephen Miller, which is you're a criminal because it's illegal to come into the country. And it's different than you did something illegal or you broke a law, but you're a criminal. Even if you came here just to get a job, or you have a relative here, or you've got, you're raising children or something like that. Everything you do is criminal because you crossed the border.
you might say, like what on the montage, you might say, well, but these are people that are doing work, and maybe they haven't done anything wrong, but they did do something wrong initially, and
right. And so, even though this place is for the worst of the worst, let's just start throwing in, single mom janitors or whatever who are working in the country under the table in Alligator Alcatraz, because fuck them. What difference does it make? You think of it this way. You raped and murdered the country.
if they want to change that in Congress, they can try to do that. But
yeah, nobody's trying to change the laws about what it means to legally enter the country or illegally enter the country. We just want to have better asylum courts and better standards.
the deterrence factor is also important.
That's what this is about. This is what she is onto something here. That they're trying to make it scary. That by making it look cruel, it scares people off from coming here. And that's what helps them with this number.
Deportation is one thing. Plus, we have additional cooperation now from these countries and taking back their illegal immigrants.
Cooperation? We're paying them.
So all of these things are happening, and it is what President Trump promised to do. He promised to close down the border. That has happened. Bill Melugin was just reporting on X the numbers for June in terms of people coming across the border. It's at absolute record lows, and this is what people wanted.
Right, but then they also were expecting these millions of people deported. The idea that so many people had come across into the country that you got to get them all out because they're all violent predators and they're awful, and there's 25 million of them and you can't find them. It's weird.
If Congress wants to change somebody's work permit or ability to stay,
they did, and the Trump administration basically turned off people's asylum status like a light switch, made them illegal. They went from legal in the morning to illegal an hour later, and then deported them as if they'd been staying in the country for 5 years.
and work longer. They have the ability to do that. And I
No, they don't.
think President Trump would be willing to listen, but they can't get past their hatred of him. And
What are you talking about? What portion of the Democrat and Langford bill has Trump supported in helping those very people?
grasping at straws to come up with a coherent message that they could
She's projecting now.
go to him with.
Harold, they said two things today that I thought were interesting to me, and this is just from the angle of how Democrats are objecting to it. They said if you're getting sent there simply because you're here illegal and you don't have a record that they want to put you in jail for, and I think it's right out of President Trump's mouth, is or maybe it was Ron DeSantis said, you could be at the gate of this place and choose to self-deport. But if you're a murderer or rapist, if you have those kind of charges, the worst of the worst, then they're going to keep you there. What of that?
Well, what if you haven't gone through due process and you haven't proved that they're murderers or rapists or whatever, and you're brought to the gate and you choose to self-deport and then you sneak back across, you just start killing people in another country? Fuck are you talking about?
Are Democrats objecting to it?
I have no clue. I think there's some Republicans who are raising concerns about this vote. But let me step back. I think that if this thing here works, I think it's great. I think there's a lot of theatrics here that I think may bother some, doesn't really bother me. But two, the border, the president has been outstanding on the border. The number of crossings has decreased so dramatically. It makes every American, particularly Democrats, to understand that there were things that the previous administration probably could have done, or not probably, certainly could have done to reduce those numbers. The hard part, Joey.
Well, yeah, a big portion of it was deny everybody who needs asylum. That would be the thing.
Has always been immigration. I served in Congress 25 years ago, and we were grappling with how do you provide paths to citizenship and who deserves a path to citizenship.
Mm-hmm. Still the same problem, dummy.
Who might be an undocumented worker. We're seeing now ask from industry, retail, agriculture, asking administration to have some leniency there. It's more complicated, more nuanced. Now,
you mean like the bills that people have tried to pass before?
Hierarchy of deportations is where the president's having his challenge. I hope that whomever populates Alligator Alcatraz, which is a clever name, Greg's right, the president's good at this performative stuff, that we put more violent criminals there than we do law-abiding gardeners and law-abiding dishwashers and law.
Well, first of all, let's say you've got the worst of the worst. You're bunking them all together, motherfucker, in a chain link fence surrounded by a tent. The worst of the worst could figure a way to get out of there. And if you assume that the alligators are going to keep them in there, you're out of your fucking mind. You could barely keep the rain out. You're going to keep the fucking rapists in? The fuck?
Abiding retail workers. Because as we're seeing, even to ask from the president's own supporters not to deport people whom are so critical to the economy.
Tough shit. No. You don't get to walk that back. Mass deportations now. That's the sign they were holding. Millions of people, 25 million. They're all from, murderers and rapists, and they're from insane asylums, right?
One thing we know as we look at this issue now is that the reliance that the United States economy has on for its mass.
Dude, I got to tell you, I could get out of that place by myself in, I don't know, give me an hour just to do it quietly. If I had help, if we were working together, Jesus Christ.
Positive performance on undocumented immigrants is larger than we thought even before the election.
Rosanna, when gardeners and retail workers and farm pickers, when they are employed under a false identity, claiming 14, 15 dependents so they don't have to pay weekly taxes, and then when the IRS catches up to them, they go into the shadows and come back to the same place sometimes with a different identity, they're not really law-abiding, are they?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, they also don't participate in any of the things that their tax dollars would go to, and their employer still has to pay into Social Security.
I didn't say that.
Yeah,
I didn't say that.
I know you did, but that's a part of this conversation.
Let's face it. The migrants are a very part of our ecosystem.
They are very part of our ecosystem. That is true. They are, extremely very.
People into the farmlands, picking those crops that we need as Americans. But, this is a flashpoint about land, power, and respect, right? Because the conservationists are coming out. And
yes, the conservationists. Those guys.
Say, you can't use this land. You're going to pollute our water. You're going to destroy our wildlife. You're going to reverse decades of Everglades restoration work. And then there's the Native Americans who say, wait a second, this is our land. You're not supposed to be doing anything like this on our land. And by the way, Governor DeSantis got this detention center up and running in 8 days.
It's tense. No shit. They're using like the same materials they use for like pop-up field hospitals for fucking hurricanes.
That could never happen in New York. We're talking about in New York doing.
What do you? They had a bunch of those things after 9/11. You dizzy fuck.
New jails in New York. It's taking years just to discuss it. Let alone.
Yeah, because they're jails in a fucking city. You don't want the people to. These aren't temporary sites. They're not building a fucking chain link fence or, inside a fucking wedding chapel tent that they throw up in a park.
On 8 days, that could never.
I don't know about the average New Yorker, but I'm gonna guess that none of them want the murderers and rapists and criminals and stuff that they catch and through due process, are given jail time or prison time to be put in a fucking tent.
What happened in New York?
There's one thing that, when we talk about inflation, we always...
God damn, this is, whatever this is, it's going to be stupid. I can feel it. You know what I mean? Like, here it comes.
Talk about currency, but the Dems have managed to apply the principle of inflation onto people. Flood the country with cheap labor, you make the American workers here worth less.
Mm-hmm.
What? Sorry, the wage for janitorial services or like working in a food processing plant have gone down? Are you fucking nuts? What are you talking about? The quality of life of everyone in the country is higher because of that lower wage, because these people work under the table. That's one of the reasons why groceries are as cheap as they are. And why they're gonna go up. Good Lord. Like, I thought I was gonna be dumb. I have to say, I'm impressed at how dumb. Holy shit.